So my involvement in cast and steel started in 2024 when they did the Halligan bar. So Temperform joined Steel Founders late 2023, and so I did miss the African spear from the year before. But I immediately became enamored with the idea of the cast and steel project. So when AFS Metal Casting Congress happened in Milwaukee in 2024, I went a day early to catch the cast and steel testing. So I think it was January, I got a phone call from Dave Paulite. He's the Vice President of Technology at the Steel Founders Society of America. And he said, "Hey, Nick, would you like to be the head of the best casting panel for cast and steel this year?" And before the words were even out of his mouth, I said yes. So the precedent for the horseman's axe is that Robert the Bruce used it to slay an enemy in a battle in single combat, and allegedly, the axe, he swung it so hard that he broke through the helmet and the skull of his adversary, which is pretty cool. So there were 66 teams signed up. We had 58 come through and give us castings. I think 52 showed up to Grand Rapids, so we only had 6 teams that didn't show up, which I think percentage-wise, that's a record for us. So that's really exciting. We had 35 different schools send teams this year. So the requirements that were this year is that the team has to be from a university, technical college, or some other post-secondary institution. It can have no more than 5 students on it, and the team must also have an industry sponsor, which is something that's very critical and is a big goal of the Cast and Steel program, is to connect these students with industry sponsors. In addition to that, as far as like the casting itself, so the axes, the only real requirements they gave them were that 1, it has to leverage casting technology, 2, it has to be under 3.3 pounds, and 3, it has to be under 31.5 inches. And then the other things they must do, they must submit a technical report detailing what they did and why they did it, and then also they must make a video that is under 5 minutes long showcasing their casting. All of the axes we got this year were under 31.5 inches, and they were under 3.3 pounds. There were none overweight. That is stark contrast to last year with George Washington's sword. We had a number of swords that were huge. They were very beefy. Didn't stand up to the test. I think there were 6 that broke. Predominantly, it was handle failures. Is either the head came loose, or it came off, or the wooden handle broke. We had one team that used a D2 tool steel cast handle, and that snapped clean in half. Yeah, so this was the fun part. So the first round, the qualification round, so the students did 2 tests. They swung the axe twice at a board that we had some chainmail nailed to. They punctured the spike through just a wooden board, a 2x4, after they were done hitting the chainmail with the blade. In the qualification round, the judges' tests were that one judge used the blade to hit the edge of a piece of 16-gauge sheet steel, kind of down like this, twice to see how much damage it took. And then the other judge did the same thing, but swung the spike at the steel sitting down, puncturing the steel, kind of like this. And then after that, the other judges, they swung at a piece of PEX tubing that was filled with colored sand. So PEX tubing, it's like the standard for plumbing in houses now, to see how well the edge was retained. So they used the blade for that. So for the finals tests, we had students hit 2 different cow femurs twice each with the blade. And then they they didn't spin the axe around. Then they used the blade to chop basically a rolled up piece of burlap. And the idea was how much edge is retained in the axe after beating the crap out of it on the cow femurs. Nice. And then the last test is a secret. You gotta watch the TV show. So what I was particularly looking for was a handful of things. 1, how good of a job did they do leveraging the strengths of their chosen casting process? 2, how well did they account for the weaknesses? So this kind of rolls in with how hard was it to make the design that they made with their chosen casting process? In addition to that, did they demonstrate a knowledge of the casting process and an understanding? So the 2 categories I was responsible for judging were best sand casting and best investment casting. So the best sand casting we awarded to Blazing Steel from the University of Alabama, Birmingham. So Blazing Steel made a casting that was really difficult to make with the sand casting process, which we liked. It actually had a cast-in design, which was really, really interesting for a sand casting, and it looked really good. It wasn't like partially filled. It was actually a dragon head breathing fire onto the axe head, and it was pretty cool. In terms of best investment casting, we awarded that to Milwaukee Molten from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Reason why we awarded it to them is that they made, although it was fairly simple, an investment casting all in one piece that looked really, really nice. And they did a really good job explaining why they were doing what they were doing throughout the casting process. And actually, the way they risered the casting and the way they oriented the casting in the mold was pretty innovative. A lot of other teams didn't think it through all that well, and they did. There were so many great parts of judging, really. I would say that it was interacting with people, primarily the students, is getting to talk to them about explain your casting to me, explain how you use the casting, explain some of what you learned, and explain some of your failures, and especially, explain to me, based upon what you've learned, what you would have done differently. That was my favorite question. A lot of them came through with really interesting answers. I would also say that I really enjoyed interacting with my fellow judges. If I was asked to do it again, I would say yes before the question was out of whoever was asking's mouth. I would say the future for the foundry industry is very bright. Cast in steel is a large part of that, and I don't think this competition gets nearly enough credit for what it is doing for the future of the foundry industry. For students, it's a great chance to get actual real experience with castings. I find that a lot of students think castings are antiquated, they're dirty, and they don't really have a place anymore. Additive's going to take over, whatever, right? When they get involved in cast and steel and they actually make castings, a lot of them really grow to love it. And I think just the big thing is the hands-on experience, the chance to work as a team in a real environment, and also the chance to engage with an industry sponsor. Part of what makes cast and steel so special is the engagement with the industry sponsor. It's very good for the students, even if the sponsor doesn't pour the casting and they're just involved from the standpoint of, hey, let's help you make decisions, design, material selection, whatever, right? It's very good for the students, and it's also really good for the industry sponsor. And Steel Founders, as an organization, serves the industry sponsors, the steel foundries primarily. And so I think it's a really good thing for both the industry sponsors to get involved from the standpoint of they get to meet these students, they get to guide them, and a lot of times, I know from my perspective, you get to learn from these students. It's not just that we need people. It's that we need new ideas. We've been making castings the same way for a long time. Innovation has slowed. That's got to change. We need to develop new ways to make castings, need to push the boundaries of what can be a casting. I know I said that before. And we also need to bring these young people in the industry to, quite frankly, stimulate it.